Welcome. Welcome to Resurrect the Republic Truth Radio broadcast with your host, Erin Davis. Tonight, we have the pleasure of listening to a very well-informed friend of ours locally here. He goes by the name of FIJA Bob. It's Bob Smiley from the Fully Informed Jury Association. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're so glad to have you with us tonight. And this is, I think, one of the most important topics that we can discuss to keep our fellow neighbors, citizens, out of prison. And just wanted to start off by saying welcome and thank you for joining us. And let people know that we met a long time ago in church. It was in Pastor Broden's church at Fair Park Bible Fellowship in South Dallas. And that's where we held the probably one and only birther summit challenging Obama's birth certificate. And I guess you met Regina. We talked to her last night about fluoride and how she brought all of us together with the Ron Paul campaign. And then she brought us all together in the Activists for Truth and Liberty meetings. And I think you probably did a FIJA presentation there, didn't you, Bob?
You know what? Yeah, I did. Actually, it was at the Complex of Colleges, or College of Complexes, another platform that Regina has been on. But I did not do Activists for Truth and Liberty. I came in after she got that started. So I've only been doing this for just over 3 years.
And what is, I guess we should tell the folks what jury nullification is. We could start with what is FIJA?
Well, FIJA is the Fully Informed Jury Association. It's all about jury power. Jury nullification is your right to nullify laws that the government passes. If you don't think they're constitutional, you don't think they're just, you don't think that they're being rightfully applied, or you just it's against your conscience that that this trial is taking away somebody's life, liberty, and property, and it's just not the appropriate situation. And that a lot of times that happens with victimless crimes, and that's something I'll talk about later. But you're right to say no to the government, say no to the trial, nullify the law, nullify the government, and that's pretty much in a nutshell what jury nullification is.
Yeah, Justice Scalia, he said that the only thing between a lone employee of the state and the defendant is the jury. So it sounds like he was pro-jury nullification.
Yeah, there's been many Supreme Court justices that have looked to the jurors and gave them their rightful place by supporting them. And John Jay, our first Supreme Court justice, said that that we have the right to judge the law. The jury has the right to judge both the law and the fact and controversy. And that was our first Chief Justice saying that. If we can go all the way back to the Magna Carta, 1066. That's when trial by jury actually started, and it's been adapted into our Constitution. So a lot of people have our founders supported it. A lot of Supreme Court justices in the past have supported it. Of course, things are changing today. The judiciary has become very corrupted, and we've got a big business going out there.
It seems to me that we can't have too many checks and balances on the justice system that we have. It's gone off the rails.
Well, what we need to do is we need to get people back in their rightful place to be that peaceful check on a tyrannical government. And yeah. that's what I do as a volunteer for the Fully Informed Jury Association. I teach people about their rights to judge the law as well as the facts, to bring their conscience in, and I try to explain to them a little bit about what their powers are.
Yeah, it seems like it's the only check really left on our legislature. I know that prison reform is a huge topic right now in Trump's administration, but, we don't just need prison reform. We need a massive overhaul of the criminal justice system that's putting these innocent people in for-profit prison systems?
Yeah, well, I've got a little bit of a presentation that I would like to give you, if I can go ahead and start with it.
Oh, please do.
Well, what I'm going to ask the audience tonight is, I want your help. I want you to help me educate folks about their powers as a juror. So by the time that we end this, you should have a pretty good idea about how powerful the juror is and what our founders wanted for this country, for the states, for the independent states. And so please listen, and I'm going to say this a few times. I want you to visit the website FIJA.org, and I want you to educate yourself there also. There's a lot of good information. We have a new website up, and I'll make it clear, I'm just a volunteer. I make no money. I want my country set back in its place of a land of liberty. So to get on here, I want to make fully informed jurors. I want to make superheroes. Superheroes that could save lives from this overreaching government. You know, it only takes one single principled juror to stand firm and use two very powerful words to put this country back on its course to freedom. And those two words are not guilty. We don't hear that too often in the courts anymore. And what I want to see is those two words being used quite a bit. Listen, this country makes over 15,000 laws every year in the different legislatures. It's crazy. They're taking our liberty and our freedom away. The juror is the last line of peaceful defense for a defendant from a tyrannical government. Our founders gave you a gift, and that gift comes in the mail in the form of a jury summons with your name on it. And there's a lot of times that folks don't want to go because they feel like it's a waste of time. They feel like the government's corrupt, and they're right, the government is corrupt. But what they need to know is that that they are that final peaceful check on this country. So, a little bit about history. The first time that the jury was established in English law was in 1066. It was written into the Magna Carta in 1215. And there's a story from 1670 in England, a guy named William Penn. He was a Quaker preacher, and he set the course for our First Amendment. And how that happened was the king had something called a conventicle act. You could only preach the Church of England's doctrine. Well, William Penn, being a Quaker, he felt like he should preach his gospel. Anyway, he went to his church one morning, and they had it locked up. He was like, no big deal. I'll go out on the street and with his congregation, and he started preaching while they locked him up. And there's an interesting story about his jurors. There were 4 jurors that voted not guilty. They saw that he should have the right to have his conscience with God. They saw that he should have a right to freedom of speech, a freedom to gather, a freedom to tell the government that they're wrong. And these 4 jurors were locked up for up to 9 weeks. They were 4-point shackled. They soiled themselves. They weren't fed sometimes. They weren't given drinks sometimes. They weren't allowed to see their families. This was evil. And what ended up happening, one of the guys was named Edward Bushell. He was a shipping magnate. And he was a very principled man. He said, you know what, my liberties are not for sale. And he stood firm. And what happened was it came to a point where they all said not guilty, and William Penn was released, and he came to the States. And it's that one case is one of the reasons we don't have jurors getting punished anymore. It's also a reason why we have 4 out of the 5 tenets of the First Amendment. The most mentioned violated right, by the way, in the Declaration of Independence is trial by jury. King George III was taking people across the pond to England to try them. denying them the rights, denying them their counsel. There were so many infractions, it was ridiculous. So our founders, what they did is they put in our Constitution, the most mentioned right is trial by jury. It's mentioned in Article 3. It's mentioned in Amendment 5, 6, and 7. Article 3 actually gives you a trial by jury with the Supreme Court. Hadn't happened too many times, but it has happened. And then you've got Amendment 5, you got the grand jury, you got the criminal jury in Amendment 6, and the civil jury in 7. And there's been plenty of instances where the juries have spoke up in our history, and they have saved lives. In this country, I would say probably the first, what I've read about, is the Salem witch trials. People were acquitted of being witches. When Washington was first elected, they started the Whiskey Rebellion. The jurors returned a not guilty verdict. Then you had the Fugitive Slave Act in the 1850s, where people that were trying to help the slaves were getting put on trial for breaking that act, that law, and the jurors would acquit. You had union organizers in the late 1800s, early 1900s that were being brought up on charges for organizing union campaigns, and the jurors would acquit. Alcohol prohibition. The jurors said, no, we're not going to have this. And there was cases where 60% of the trials ended up in acquittals. There was a pretty neat story about alcohol prohibition. A guy named George Bevins. He got busted with a bottle of booze. He went to court. He saw what was going on in society, gave him pretty good confidence that he would win his case. But his jury did something pretty unique. What they did was they took that bottle and they looked at it and they said, is this evidence really alcohol? We need to make sure. So they cracked it open, and each juror took swigs, and they passed it around, and by the time it came to the end, it was gone, and the evidence was drank, and they had to acquit because there was no evidence. I think alcohol prohibition was purely violent and definitely a violation of people's Ninth Amendment rights. Those rights that are not listed are retained by the people. Federal government had no business telling people what they can and can't do with their own bodies. But we've also had many cannabis cases these days that are ending up in acquittals. There's even a town in Montana, I think it was in Missoula, they can't even seat a jury for a crime of cannabis possession. So they don't even bother with those cases. There's El Paso, Texas. If you're caught with a certain amount of cannabis, a small amount, they're not going to bring charges. And I think we're starting to see some changes, which is good. And I believe the jury can actually push us along and stop this this violent prohibitionist war. But I want to tell you something about what Thomas Jefferson said. I want to give you a quote. He said that I consider trial by jury as the only anchor yet imagined by man by which a government can be held to the principles of its Constitution. It says a whole lot right there. John Jay, our first Supreme Court Justice, as I said earlier, said the jury has a right to judge both the law as well as the fact and controversy. My favorite quote from one of the Chief Justices of the Supreme Court, his name was Harlan F. Stone. He said that the law itself is on trial as much as the cause which is to be decided. Folks, there's a lot of bad laws being passed out there, and we're supposed to be putting these laws on trial. I know here in Texas, we have Article 1, Section 8 tells us that we have the right to judge the law and the facts. And there's many other state constitutions that say that. And we need to be reminded of that. It's a shame that our public school system is not educating folks to be good jurors, because this is the way that we keep this government in check. There's another quote I want to give you from the attorney for the Peter Zinger trial. Peter Zinger was talking about the truth, how crooked the governor was in his state. And Andrew Hamilton, his attorney, he said that where a jury does not question the law, they become useless or worse. Peter Zinger's trial, he was a publisher of a newspaper, and he was just reporting the truth. But since it made the governor look bad, he didn't like that, and they put him on trial. This is where we got the freedom of press in our First Amendment. But how do we keep the legislative and executive branches in check? Again, it's putting the law on trial. Thomas Jefferson, one last quote. Thomas Jefferson warned that the judiciary, if given too much power, might ruin our republic and destroy our rights. And I believe it has, and I think a lot of people can agree with that. For now, we see in this country, we have the most prisoners in the history of this world. We have 2.3 million prisoners in the United States. I've even seen reports that with this violent drug prohibition that we've seen since the Nixon era, that over 40 million felons have been made because of the drug war. And I will add this. It is a person's right to do whatever they want with their own body, whether I agree with them or not. We need to be a tolerant society. And when we're not tolerant, tyranny will prevail. And we need to let people live the way they see fit. And as a Christian, we need to be the salt and light. We don't need to be putting laws on people and telling them what they can and can't do. People need to be able to say, hey, what is it you have? Tell me about what's your hope? And we should be that kind of a Christian that people would, seek us out for those answers. We shouldn't be putting laws on them, telling them what they can and can't do in God's eyes. I'm totally against this violent prohibition. But to move on, this is the freest nation in the world, they say, but yet we have the world's most incarcerated. China locks up 118 per 100,000. India locks up like 38 in 100,000. China and India make up about 2.3 trillion people, or billion people. I'm sorry, trillion. Billion people. 2.7 billion people. And we make up only 330 million people. And we lock up more than those two countries combined. Something's wrong. We have 5% of the world's population, and we're at 25% of the world's prison population. This government, because of this violent drug war, locks up a lot of folks for racist reasons. If you go back to the 1930s, after alcohol prohibition, the new Narcotics Bureau, Federal Narcotics Bureau, Harry Anslinger, said that, he basically was out of a job because of alcohol prohibition ending, so they started the Narcotics Bureau, and he started it on a lie. He said that if the Negroes and the Mexicans are smoke marijuana and listen to the devil's music, jazz, that they will want to have sex with white women. They also refer to his film as Reefer Madness. It was all based on lies. So what we have today with Nixon's war on drugs and Reagan's exponential war on drugs, we have 1 in 18 white men getting locked up.
Wow, that's way too many, Bob. And we'll be right back after this break.
This is the most transparent administration in history.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome. Welcome back, folks, to Resurrect the Republic Truth Radio broadcast with your host, Erin Hobson, and FIJA Bob from the Fully Informed Jury Association. I urge all of you to go and check out his website at FIJA.org. And I had a perfect scripture come up here. It's John 7:24. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. So I think that means your conscience, and don't leave it at the door. And the reason this topic is so important to us is because we see the suffering on the other side when people just go along to get along in that jury box, and you know that prosecutor and judge is looking for a guilty verdict because they make money on all these private and public prison systems. It's the prison industrial complex. And they make so much money in their stocks the longer they lock people up. A death sentence is a cash cow for them. The longer the sentence, the more money in their pockets. And they can't even be prosecuted. These prosecutors can't be prosecuted. They have immunity, even when they withhold exculpatory evidence and the Brady violations. I think we've all learned what those two words mean this year. And so that's why we're really grateful to Bob to bring us the history. I notice this is a fantastic website, all new and improved, and that FIJA has fought for jury rights for 29 years. And we really want to thank the people at FIJA for having such a great website to educate everybody on this topic. And thanks again, Bob, for joining us tonight.
Sure. And I'd like to go back to where I was. That we have 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prison population. And that in the U.S., the government locks up 1 in 18 white men, 1 in 6 Latinos, and 1 in 3 black men. There are even some cities that have over 50% of their young black men that have been locked up or are locked up. And I believe racism still is very heavy in this country, and that does nothing for any of us, and it hurts us. We have no grace and mercy. God calls us to have grace and mercy and forgiveness and love, and we are to love our neighbors, and we don't. And we need to get back to that as Christians. And I will talk to you about Texas. Texas has 120 penitentiaries. 15 of those are federal. It's a big, big business here in Texas. We've got 7.8% of the prisons that the United States have. And that's pretty huge. There's a lot of towns in Texas that completely depend upon the penitentiary for jobs for the community. Because if the prison wasn't there, the community would dry up. It would be complete chaos. So we've got some problems there. You know, you've got to take a look at what do the prisons bring in? It takes people to build the prisons, to make the bars, to make the toilets, the beds, the prison uniforms, the kitchen appliances, the flooring, the lighting, the facility maintenance. There's so much money to be made in this industry. It's horrible. You've got the commissary that folks are making a fortune off of. You've got telephone calls from prisoners that are hurting families. You've got the medical industry and the prison industry that's a big money maker for somebody. You've got the Bob Barker Industries that does a lot of these supplies. He's not part of Price is Right. It's different entity, but if you're ever at a prison, and I've delivered to plenty of prisons, you'll see that he has his product everywhere, whoever this guy is. But you've also got some problems after folks get out of prison. You've got the felon title. I'm a truck driver, and I go to a lot of warehouses, and I see a lot of prisoners that are now working for $8, $9, $10 an hour. Some of these folks have been at these businesses for 10, 15 years, and they're still only making $10 an hour, and they are told they can never climb the ladder. Now, there are some places they allow the ex-felons to climb the ladder, but it's very few of them. So what does that do? That creates a whole nother working class of people. The businesses actually get tax credits for hiring ex-felons. And there's even some places out there, like halfway houses, that will take the hourly pay and keep it and house the person for however long the courts tell them to house them for. So these people are essentially either slaves in the prison or slaves outside the prison. Inside the prison, I have visited several locations around the DFW Metroplex that has prisons, and we actually have quite a few. One of them I go to is on a local base here, and the felons that are part of the federal prison industry will make about 20 cents an hour. They do all the lawn maintenance.
Yeah, there's no doubt that slavery has never ended in this country, and we'll be right back after these commercials.
Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left's hypocrisy. Little pink houses for you and me. Welcome to the face.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Do you or someone you know suffer from chest pain, blood pressure, cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat? Are you looking for a more natural solution to overcome these health challenges? You hear the ads all the time. If this stuff's so good, why doesn't my doctor prescribe it? That's easy. Doctors are not trained in natural medicine. Extendivite Heart Tonic does want you to be as healthy as you can be, and it really works. Take Extendivite for 6 months and your doctor will say, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. It's working for you. Get the dependability of Extendivite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Welcome back. This is our Texas tune. Welcome to hot Texas, where it's 96 degrees every day this week. You keeping cool over there, Bob?
As best as I can.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I wanted to read Isaiah 6:8. Also, I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, Here I am, send me. Is that what the Lord said to you when, or you said to the Lord when this came across your path, Bob?
You know, yeah, that resonates.
It's not fun standing in front of a courthouse at 8 o'clock in the morning. I know that.
No, it's difficult because you're going to bed early the night before and getting up before the crack of dawn. Actually, we're down. When I'm doing my courthouse outreach, I'm down there by 7, and I'm not leaving till 8:15, 8:20, and then I'm going right to work and working a full day. And a lot of times it's a 12-hour day. But you know, we most folks out there that want to see freedom and liberty restored in this country sacrifice greatly. We spend a lot of our own money and our own time. We actually sacrifice our families and yes. our wives and our children see less of us. It's we all have great sacrifices. And some gave all, some give their lives. Our many founders gave their lives. And but who am I? So I'm just another drop in the bucket. Our friend, what's he say about a drop? It might be that one drop that does what?
You plant seeds and God will water them.
Brad says something about, our friend Brad says something about being that drop in the bucket that puts out the fire or something.
Oh, yeah. The whole world's on fire, and I just have one bucket. And your bucket is the FIJA outreach.
Right. Well, let me talk about the bases again. The bases use the federal prisoners to be their lawn care maintenance, to be their maid service. A lot of times they're out there cleaning the toilets, sweeping the floors, picking up the trash. Mm. And if I was a felon, I can't even get on the base. But these folks are freely roaming the base. So that's pretty much hypocrisy right there. These people aren't dangerous to society.
Right.
If they were, they wouldn't be out there being the slaves for the system. And the federal government has them making furniture. The federal government has them making clothing for the military. The DOD uses a lot of federal prisoners to take care of their slave needs. Matter of fact, talking about slavery, the 13th Amendment, the Civil War to me wasn't about ending slavery. If you read Lincoln's speeches, he did not see the black man as being equal. He was, to me, a very big racist. But what came out of the Civil War? We had the 13th and 14th Amendments. The 13th Amendment just changed the ownership of slaves. No longer was 1/5 of the nation going to own slaves. It was going to be the government. It was going to be the feds and the states that got to own people. And they did that if somebody was incarcerated. Well, now we've got a system that makes over 15,000 laws a year. Of course, we're going to have a lot of criminals. We even have bureaucracies making laws and standards and arresting people, which is absolutely ridiculous. So we have a system of government that's got it way wrong. We've turned 100% away from what our original intent was for this country.
The dog is off the chain, and it's up to we the people to get it back on. That's
right, absolutely. And trial by jury is the anchor for our Constitution, as Thomas Jefferson says. So we need to, put on the brakes, and we need to learn more about our duty as a juror. And again, I'll say, go to FIJA.org and educate yourself. I'll take this little moment to, go shopping on there. I want you to get a little book that costs about $1. It's called the Citizen's Rule Book. By the time you're reading this little book, you're going to be a fully informed juror, and you're going to be an educator for FIJA by the time you end up reading that book. But then you'll want more literature. And they have Lysander Spooner's Reader. They have little booklets called The Jury's Business is Justice by Harvey Weissong, my favorite booklet. That's only $5. His booklet will make you fully informed. There's an essay by Justice Goodloe out of Washington State, and that man had a lot to say about the powers of the jury. And there's a nice supplement about surviving voir dire in there, which is jury selection. But this country, we've got things going really wrong. The judiciary has gained too much power, but there's other branches and there's other departments that have really added to this. And first I'd like to say, the government violates their oaths of office. They don't protect the rights any longer. They violate our rights. That Bill of Rights was to be a list that the government was supposed to uphold and protect. Now it seems like just a list that, for them to violate. They say we're a land of laws now instead of a land of liberty. And that's pretty disturbing to hear that coming out of these mouths of politicians. And,
it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, but a lot of our politicians, what are their backgrounds? They're lawyers. A lot of them are lawyers, and that's pretty hypocritical for them to be in there. Yeah, they're going to make more laws to keep their little clique in business.
Exactly.
Every year, can you think about how many lawyers come out of those law schools?
Ugh, I can't imagine a more tedious and boring job.
Well, they're making a lot of money on these bad laws, so they're going to pass more and more bad laws. Another area that's messed up is the police force we have. They arrest people for unconstitutional laws. And by the time those cases come to trial, there's no way that a cop could remember everything. And they don't want to look like a fool for forgetting something, so they got to piece things together in their minds, and so they look good on that witness stand. And I want to pitch a book here. It's called "You Have the Right to Remain Innocent." I
love that book.
Do you know the name of that author? I think it's Dwayne something. I've loaned that book out, so I don't have it with me, but you can pick it up. It used to be $5, but now it's going for like $8.50 on Amazon. And what a great book! It talks about the different problems and the different biases that police officers bring into their field, and some of them are pretty innocent, but a lot of them are not. And it also brings to attention that police can lie legally. They can lie. They literally can scare the crap out of somebody, and they confuse them, and they get them to confess to a crime they didn't commit.
It's called You Have the Right to Remain Innocent, and it's written by James Duane.
There you go, James Duane. Excellent book. Highly recommended. If anything, for your own personal safety while you're in public, you should read this book. Phenomenal read. But so we've got the cops that are messed up in this system. We've got the DAs. The DAs are very powerful people. They decide life, imprisonment, death, or freedom for somebody. But most of the time, it's someone's going to get imprisonment, and a lot of times it's lifelong imprisonment.
I just saw your statistic on your website. 95% of people plea bargain and go for it. Wow.
95%. 95% at the state level, and it's under 3% at the federal level.
Wow.
Matter of fact, now the federal prosecutors only try, on the average, 0.2% of the case. 0.2% of the cases that they have on their docket.
These statistics are astounding. I see this other one, 64% get extra punishment if they don't take the plea bargain.
Yes, that's called a trial tax. Have you ever heard of a trial tax?
Trial tax. Oh, they come up with all these new taxes. That's a new one.
Okay, trial tax. Someone gets arrested. They stack a bunch of charges on them. So what they're originally arrested for is added to. So you've got all these mandatory minimums, got all these years added onto a sentence, and they go to this defendant, your prosecutor that you elect, goes to this defendant and says, listen, I'll drop these 6 charges and keep this one, which was the original one, and we'll give you 5 years. Now, you've already sat in jail for 2 years waiting for trial, so you only got 3 years to go. So if you dare exercise your right to a trial by jury, we're going to go for the whole shebang, and we're going to put you away for 50 years. You got that, buddy?
Wow. So they throw as much at the wall and see what'll stick. And can the jury know how the minimums work for the defendant? Is there any way?
No, they hide that from folks. And that's not my expertise, but from what I understand, they do hide that. That is something I need to definitely research, and I would suggest everybody else research that too. But there's a lot that jurors aren't told anymore. Matter of fact, I will say this: the juror used to be the ones to do the sentencing and everything, but not anymore. The judges have overtaken everything. The DA has taken over everything.
When did that mandatory minimum junk come into play?
You know what? I was just reading about that recently, and it has slipped my mind, but it wasn't. I don't think it was too long ago. I'm going to give you another book to read that I just picked up this week. This book is called The Missing American Jury by Suja, S-U-J-A, Thomas, T-H-O-M-A-S. And this is a law professor out of Illinois that has really did an exhaustive research on the jury and the grand jury. And I just started getting into the book, but she addresses that. That did come up in the book, but I unfortunately I didn't retain that. I'd have to find it in my notes somewhere. But anyway, I want to suggest that book because just what I've read in the first chapter and the preface, I'm blown away. I've seen her in an interview on the on CATO, CATO, and Institute, and she was on a panel with a judge, a federal judge, a defense attorney, and they had talked a lot about what was going on in the judiciary, and she was by far had the strongest case to talk about what is going on in this country, and it's the missing American jury. But which, you know, by the way, we had I want to talk about this real quick. The grand jury. I've got another book I'm going to recommend called The People's Panel, and this one may be hard to come by, but I'm told you can actually get it on the on your Kindle. It is by Richard Younger, Younger. Talks a lot about the grand jury and how we lost it. We lost it in the 1940s. The grand jury went to the prosecutor's office. They took complete control over it. Back in the day, with what the founders had originated for this country and the Fifth Amendment grand jury, was that the people would bring the indictments, and the only time they called in a prosecutor was to ask him questions about, you know, how the law or how things were going to operate in the courtroom, and then they'd kick them back out. The grand jurors did all the investigations. They did the interviews with folks. They didn't mess around with the person's life. They spent as much time as they could on each case. And unfortunately today, we're seeing where a grand jury may hear 50 cases in a day, and they may only spend 30 seconds on each case. We have no regard for life. And these district attorneys that we are electing at the state level in the counties are quite evil, and we need to actually expose this. This is one of the areas we need to fully educate people, and if they can get on a grand jury and go in there and know their powers and ask for an investigation, you know what? It's a pushback on these guys, and we'll throw a wrench in their gears, and maybe all these victimless crimes that we have will start dissipating and going away, and we'll really concentrate just on the bad guys. And another thing I want to point out is that there was a lot of politicians prior to the 1940s that were indicted for their misdeeds. But since we don't have control of the grand jury anymore in the people's hands, the DA runs everything, and the DA tells the grand jury what to do and how to do it. Since we're not educated, they literally get away with murder, and that's why we don't. That's one of the ways we're supposed to have a check on our system. One of the other checks we're supposed to have is impeachment. Our legislators can bring impeachment charges on the executive branch, which, by the way, most people may not know this, but the DA is part of the executive branch. And if there's a crooked DA out there, the House can bring impeachment charges, and the Senate can try them. And we need to bring that check back in on the system. And then you've got your executive branch that can actually, your governor or the president can pardon people for the governor for state charges, and the president of the United States can pardon folks for federal charges. And we need to bring these checks back in on the system because branches of government get it wrong. Mm-hmm. But I would love to see people understand their power as a grand juror. Mm-hmm. In a lot of counties, we can actually literally sign up to be a grand juror. Or if we don't get picked for a petite trial juror, we can actually sign up at the courthouse. And that's something we need to restore. I'll give you a quick story. I was given one of my first speeches 3 years ago at an open carry event in Dallas. And I had a young man walk up, and he said, "Hey, I got called to jury duty. It's a grand jury. Could you tell me about it?" And I told him what I knew, and I hooked him up with FIJA, and we got him. I sent him some things out of another book that Roger Roots. He's another author that I want to recommend. I'll give that book real quick. The Conviction Factory: The Collapse of America's Criminal Courts by Roger Roots.
Well, I think a lot of people listening tonight know who Roger Roots is, and we have a lot of these books listed on the Year of Jubilee website if you want to find some more great books. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Like your parents both did. Everything you earned by breaking your backs, we're gonna redistribute when we make our pay tax. Hey, sit back down, don't be a jerk.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you one from Amazon.com. I just wanted you to know I saw my doctor and I laughed because he said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." I have been taking Extendivite. I had borderline high blood pressure, heart flutter, high cholesterol. I changed my diet and included Extendivite with an amazing turnaround for the better. A few months later, I had a doctor's appointment and took a stress test. I passed. No heart flutter, blood pressure was perfect. My doctor even took me off my medicine. I thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. This stuff works, and I'm so grateful for Extendivite. Thank you, Justin G. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite. Father of the moon, which fills my sails, flows the sea of years. With no provisions, but in open faces, no straits of fear.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Resurrect the Republic Truth Radio broadcast with your host, Erin Davis, and our guest tonight is FIJA Bob from Fully Informed Jury Association. In my opinion, this is the best solution to stopping the tyranny that's coming against us from the government. It's the best defense. And I just wanted everybody to know that the website that we run for Year of Jubilee, or IHateTheFBI.com, either one takes you to the same page, is full of political prisoners. And if what Bob is talking about is implemented around our country, we would have a lot less political prisoners that have no victim and no crime sitting in behind bars for decades, and you too, listening out there, could be a superhero, just like Bob's talking about. You know, there was one juror who voted jury nullification a few years ago at the Dr. Dino, a.k.a. Dr. Dino. His name is Pastor Kent Hovind. And he was looking at 20 more years. He was coming out of a 10-year sentence for structuring, which is the most ridiculous law I've ever heard in my life. Anyway, he was. They wanted to throw mail fraud at him for mailing a letter. They wanted to give him 20 years. People stood outside the courthouse educating the public about jury nullification. We want to thank those people, because if it wasn't for them and that one juror in the box that voted not guilty, Pastor Kent Hovind would still be behind bars today. And instead of that, he's baptizing people in his lake on his 154-acre Creation Science Evangelism Center in Lenox, Alabama. So if you want to be a superhero, check out what Bob is talking about tonight. It's jury nullification.
Well, structuring, I don't know if you know this, but that came from the war on drugs.
Oh, no doubt.
There is so many things that the war on drugs have it's brought chaos to our lives. Almost every one of us has a family member that has been affected by this war on drugs. And I'll give you another book. I've got a handful of books I want to put out there, but The War on Drugs is a War on Freedom. It's written by a Christian guy named Lawrence M. Vance, V-A-N-C-E. Incredible short book. It's a book of essays. The guy has great insight, and it's an easy read. And after I read this book, I changed my whole stance on the war on drugs. I was a statist before, and I believed the government's lies. And today, I'm awake. But back to the story about my friend Eric at my first speech I gave for FIJA at an open carry event. He came up and he was wanting to know about getting called to grand jury duty, and so we set him up. We got him fully informed, and he went in there knowing what his job duty was.
I'm sorry, Bob. We'll be right back with the jury member that was informed by Bob.
Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Here in the land of the not so free.
Interested in photo ops.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EO Tech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Resurrect the Republic, Truth Radio broadcast on RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Welcome back to Resurrect the Republic Truth Media Network with your guest host, Erin Davis. And tonight we're talking to Bob Smiley from Fully Informed Jury Association. That's FIJA.org. And we want to educate you all so you can be a superhero and we don't have all these families suffering and this productivity of our country down the tubes because people are behind bars when they don't need to be. And John 7:24 says, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." And that's what we're asking you all to do. We also have Galatians 6:9, "And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." And this isn't fun. I mean, maybe some people would rather be playing baseball with their kids, but I think we need to educate the kids and bring them up in the ways of the Lord and teach them things that are going to make a big difference in their future. And Bob was just telling us how he met somebody, and please continue, Bob, with your education of the young man at the open carry event.
Sure. Anyway, we got him informed. We got him in touch with some folks that could help him learn about the grand jury. And he went in there, and they ended up picking him as the foreman of the grand jury. The DA literally made a rubber stamp with his signatures, so they could try to behind the scenes probably stamp whatever they needed to stamp for indictments if the grand jury didn't see the way they wanted them to see. So, but what he did was, he's. Two of the stamps that were out there, he took both of them and stuck them in his pocket. They still had probably a capability to make another one, but he was doing his best to fulfill his position in his rightful place as a foreman. But he literally saved hundreds of lives because he knew what his powers were. And he also found out that there's a lot of politics that go on in the jury room. And that you want to be careful with how you speak to folks. You want to make sure you can get people on the same page. You don't want to let them break away and side with a cop that maybe had been snuck on the grand jury. You want to try to win hearts, and so you got to be careful how you speak to people and how you play politics, and you want to bring things in that are neutral, and you don't want to talk about how awake you are, because folks aren't all there yet. So it also can be a teaching lesson. But he literally went in there and saved hundreds and hundreds of people over the 6 months that he was in there serving.
Praise God.
Yeah. So this is actually working, and not only that. We've got 3 jury courthouse outreaches going in Texas, and we're seeing some great things happen down in Waco. The whole reason I got started in this volunteering for FIJA was in 2015. In May, we had a bunch of bikers get shot up by cops. The cops showed up a couple hours early before this political event. And set up cameras, got into sniper position, and we're inside a group of bikers and called the Cossacks, and they started a fight with another biker club. Now, these clubs that show up typically are out there with no problems every meeting. Now, I'm not a biker. I was just, this happened in Waco, Texas, and I didn't like how the judiciary and the DA was treating these bikers. I hated it. I didn't like what I saw with the police. I didn't see anything that was proper going on in protecting these folks' rights. $1 million bail, blanket charges on 177 bikers. A couple of these folks had, or a couple of these motorcycle clubs set up, a tent to hand out informationals. It was a meeting to get out and talk about how they can free up money in the Texas Treasury that was paid in by motorcyclists for their licenses and fees and whatnot, to free up that money for public education for biker safety. It wasn't a gang fight. There was a group of bikers that showed up with the cops that started the crap. And anyway,
sounds familiar.
We've got a courthouse outreach going there. We've heard many cases where people have, after they've taken our brochures, that they've, did the right thing and set people free from bad cops or bad laws.
How do people find out about these outreaches that you do?
Well, I went down there. I started going down there for some of the biker rallies, and then I started going door to door to homes, handing out brochures. I started going to stores. I went to the mall. I went to parks.
How do you get people to join you? Did you do an event on Facebook or Meetup or something?
Yeah, I was meeting people as I was going down there, and people were grabbing onto this. And I'd go to gun shows. I started doing the gun shows down there, and we've got a great brochure from FIJA about the Second Amendment and how our government violates it in a multitude of ways, and how there's cases where the jurors have overturned the government's rulings and how they protected the Second Amendment. So I do go down to gun shows, and I've had people volunteer to come out there and help me and then like what I'm doing. And, probably about a year after I started going down there, after the shooting where they tried to massacre all the bikers, where the government was massacring the bikers, people started getting involved, and we did a courthouse outreach. Now there's a solid group of men and women down there that come out every Monday, and even they were out there today. Every time they call in jurors out there, they're out there handing out brochures, educating everybody. Matter of fact, it was kind of funny. The DA, Abel Reyna, I saw him my second time I was out there starting that courthouse outreach. I even went up to him to try to give him a brochure and tell him that, hey, you know what, this government's screwing up. And he tried to say, yeah, maybe Trump can do something about it. This was about 2 years ago. I said, no, it's screwed up right here.
Right.
And I'm sick of it. And we're going to educate these folks out here. And he'd beeline for the door.
Oh, he did.
But I'm not going to stand down.
Good.
I'm going down there, and it's a 100-mile drive, and go down there and do a courthouse outreach, and then turn around and drive all the way back up to work another 100 miles and work all day. And yeah, it's a great sacrifice, but is it wonderful because it's a small community. There's only probably about 230,000 people in McLennan County. So these guys at the courthouse outreaches that are handing out the brochures know a lot of these folks that are coming in and out of that courthouse.
Cool.
One guy was a ex-county cop, sheriff's deputy. He quit because he saw the corruption. But he's one of the guys out there handing out brochures. How cool is that? And,
that's cool.
Yeah, and a lot of Second Amendment guys. These guys all open carry at the courthouse while they exercise their rights to hand out this information on the sidewalks. And there's men and women in Waco that are incredible patriots, and they're stepping up to the plate. And the district attorney has been voted out of office. His career is over in McLennan County. The jurors are being educated. We probably have close to 20% of the jurors educated in the last 3 years. That's pretty phenomenal.
Wow.
The first biker case, their slam dunk case, ended up in 11 saying not guilty, 1 saying guilty. And the reason they got the 1 guilty was because he was a retired Waco police officer they snuck out of the jury. So that first case would have been a full acquittal if the government wouldn't have been so crooked in McLennan County. But we saw what they did to the Branch Davidians 25 years ago. And by God, I wasn't going to allow that to happen again. And on that note, I'm very thankful for all those patriots that went out to, support the Bundys and also those in Oregon. There's a lot of patriots out there that didn't want to see another Waco. There's a lot of us that don't ever want to see another Waco or Ruby Ridge. ever
Unless
again.
you're on the ATF.
That's right. And we need to abolish these illegal criminal bureaucracies. They should be ashamed of themselves for what they've done to our country.
Mm-hmm.
But
shame on them.
Right. Also, I want to talk about the judges. Judges are supposed to be referees. They're supposed to just tell the jurors, about the law, explain it to them. And but they're not. They're telling the jurors to apply the law as given. Matter of fact, they're even forcing them to take an oath to apply the law as given. There's never been a Supreme Court ruling for that. There's never been a law made that jurors have to apply the law as given. Matter of fact, if you remember all the quotes I gave, it was all about putting the law on trial. Mm-hmm. So these judges are acting way out of pocket. Again, Thomas Jefferson said that trial by jury is to be an anchor for our Constitution, and he also said that if the judiciary gains too much power, that we'd lose our Republican freedoms. But you know what? There's also there's many that jurors that don't have an idea about what they're supposed to do before they get there. Prior to the 1890s, the attorneys, the judge, they could tell the jurors that they had the power to nullify and to put the law. If they didn't think the law was just, that they could nullify it. And they were told of their powers. And there was a case called Sparf versus U.S. in the 1890s. It was a murder in the high seas case, but what came out of that is the judges and the court officials didn't have to tell the jurors about their powers anymore. And not that they didn't have their powers, they just didn't have to tell them. So now the jurors aren't told, and we are definitely not taught in the public school system, and probably most private schools either, about trial by jury and the powers of the jury. And so this is where we come in, all of us, all your listeners, where we start actually educating ourselves even further and restore this check on our government. We're actually the fourth branch of government. Anytime this government wants to take something from somebody, they've got to bring it before us. And check this out. We are the weakest part of this system, but we've got the most power. One juror can overturn what Congress passes for law and the president signs, or what a bureaucracy tries to put out there, or what the state legislators put out there, or what a crooked government official does. One juror overturns them.
It's all backwards. It's like all these people calling us, anti-government or, homelands, domestic terrorists or anti-government, and most of these people are walking around with constitutions in their pockets, and they're targeted for being, dangerous. And even you have Ryan Bundy out there. He was labeled a domestic terrorist. You never see him without a constitution in his pocket, and he's running for governor, for heaven's sakes. And also, did you hear that story this week about the West Virginia Supreme Court being impeached, a whole bunch of charges of fraud on those judges? That sounds like a really good case that hopefully will ripple across the whole country.
Yeah, amen to that. We need to restore the checks and balances we have. Once we get our checks and balances back in place, it's going to be very difficult for this government to overreach. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. I used to be involved with politics. Ron Paul woke me up, something fierce, even though I knew something was going on all the way back to 9/11. And JFK, even learning about JFK's assassination, I knew something was wrong there. But I really woke up with Ron Paul, and he is a very, very big advocate for FIJA's work as well.
Good.
I hope that we return to these checks and balances, and we start impeaching. Matter of fact, if you vote, you should never vote for anybody that's not going to talk about using their checks on the system. A governor needs to be talking about pardoning people like Jeffrey Winehouse in Missouri. the Montana Freeman, they should be pardoned. Schaefer Cox should be pardoned by Trump, but these guys aren't talking about their pardon powers. So thankfully Trump has done some pardons, but I would expect a lot more. We have too many political prisoners. But I will say this, there's a lot of problems in our system, and I want to list some of those. Prosecutions give counsel for defendants. These counselors, these lawyers that these defendants have, are being paid by the prosecutor's office, which means they've got a boss, and if they don't do what the boss wants, the boss isn't going to give them more cases. Now, they're not getting a bunch of money for cases. They're not paid that much, so they can't even go down and visit the defendants in the prison. They can't take phone calls because those are expensive. They can't hire investigators. They can't look at witnesses or evidence. So a lot of times these defendants are sitting in prison for years. They lose their families, their homes, their jobs. Mm-hmm. They have crappy counsel. And then the first time they meet a lot of these public defenders isn't in court. And they tell them, if you don't take the plea deal, you're screwed. And they're like, well, we're innocent. No, you're going away for 50 years. And so that's why we have a 95% plea deal rate at the state level and 97% at the federal level. It's just wickedness.
Do you think it's because the lawyers and the prosecutors or defense attorneys are lazy?
Oh, sure. And they're not getting paid to do their job, these public defenders. I've been out at the courthouse, and I've actually had defense attorneys take my brochures out of my hand and throw it in the trash. I've had defense attorneys try to jump down my throat and tell me that they're going to get me kicked out of there, not realizing I've been there for quite some time, and I've already got my place on that sidewalk. Grace versus U.S., I think it was 1984, gives us that space is free speech. So if anyone wants to start up an outreach, stay on that sidewalk. Don't go on that courthouse property. Don't give them a chance to arrest you.
That's good advice.
Yeah. Know your rights before you get out there. Matter of fact, I would encourage y'all can write me at fijabob@gmail.com. And if you have any questions, I would love to help you get started. We can, and even get a hold of FIJA. That email is aji@fija.org. And we'll do whatever we can to help you get situated for a courthouse outreach. I want my country back. I want freedom. I want families to stop going through this hell that they're going through, especially since most of them are in for victimless crimes, bad unconstitutional laws. This is ridiculous what's going on in this country. And we've got a lot more problems that we need to be aware of as fully informed jurors. And I want to tell you about a few of those. We've got junk science. Erin, did you know that crime labs get paid for testing substances or whatnot?
Yes.
And then if that substance brings a conviction, they get a bonus?
Yes, it's diabolical.
Yes. And then of course when you've got officers up there, cops up there in the witness stand, they don't want to look like idiots. They're going to make themselves look as good as possible because you know what, they want to be promoted. Expert witnesses, they love their income from the prosecution. We've heard of many cases like Schaefer Cox's with exculpatory evidence not being allowed. A lot of times they'll bring somebody in and a defendant in with handcuffs and their prison outfit, their orange jumpsuit, and they may have a huge police presence around the courthouse. Well, that paints a picture that is wicked for the defendant.
It's like a Hollywood production. It's absolutely crazy. We'll be right
That's
back
correct.
After these messages.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Welcome back, folks, to Resurrect the Republic Truth Radio broadcast with your host, Erin Davis, and our guest tonight is Bob. We call him FIJA Bob because he's from Fully Informed Jury Association. And tonight's call-in number, if you've got some questions for Bob, it's 1-800-313-9443. We encourage you to call in with any questions you might have. I've got Psalm 119:30. It says, I have chosen the way of truth. Thy judgments have I laid before me. So God's written a book, and it's Bible, Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. And you've got the Constitution, which is a tiny little booklet, and we don't need all these laws where we have 3 felonies a day, right, Bob?
That's right. That's right. I want to. I didn't finish about the trial tax. And I'll just give you that real quick. The trial tax is the extra years that are added onto a sentence if you dare take your case to trial. So if they offer you a plea deal of 5 years and they keep the stat charges and they go after, say, 50 years, that trial tax is at 45 years. So you're getting taxed another 45 years out of your life for exercising your right to a trial by jury. How wrong is that?
That's crazy. Well,
we not only have the trial tax, but we don't have speedy trials anymore. Back in the day, they used to have to bring a case to trial within 60 days. Now we're seeing people in jail for years before they get to even hear about a trial date. You've got high bail. You've got a lot of government trying to make people's lives miserable. I mean, it's really hard to get a fair and impartial jury because you got something where they process called voir dire, where it's a panel where they pick from say 60 people to get 12 jurors, and they're asking a lot of questions that will help them get a conviction. So to me, that's actually jury tampering. The judge and the attorneys in that courtroom are tampering with the jury.
Totally.
So you got to know how to survive that. Go to FIJA's website, FIJA.org. Go to Called for Jury Duty and read that page there. There's a lot of what I'm talking about there, and also there's a section called Surviving voir dire. Now, it was written by an attorney out of Houston. His name is Clay Conrad. He wrote the book called Jury Nullification, The Evolution of a Doctrine. It's another book I want to suggest by Clay Conrad. But he also wrote the Surviving voir dire. When I go out and I do different outreaches, I always talk about surviving that. And how do you do that? You want to answer questions in the way the government wants to hear you answer them. So if they're going to say, can you apply the law as given? Well, sure I could. Sure I can apply the laws given. Well, what do you think about jailhouse snitches or jailhouse witnesses? Well, we want to hear all sides of the story. So you want to answer them. You've got to be more clever than they are. They're just people in suits that have been trained to screw us. We've just got to be educated to go in there and learn their game before we even get in there. And so when you read Surviving voir dire from Clay Conrad, you're going to be that's another step of being fully informed, another level that you'll be at. And listen, teach others about this. I promise you, this is something you can become very passionate about. I know folks that have been doing this for almost the 30 years that FIJA has been around, and they're wonderful, wonderful folks. Some of them that were down with the Branch Davidians 20-some years ago trying to educate jurors that about jury nullification. But, when you get that gift in the mail from our founders called a jury summons with your name on it, go show up. Yeah. I know the government's crooked, but you're the one that's going to be able to keep them in line. So get down there, read that Surviving voir dire. If you need a haircut, get a haircut. Wear a nice outfit. Don't wear a shirt with a political message. I had a buddy of mine call me up saying, I'm headed to jury duty. I've got my Ron Paul shirt on. I'm going, oh, dude, turn it inside out. And but we got to think about every angle because a person's life is at stake. His family's lives are at stake, and the generations to come. So
that's right.
We've got to take this serious, and so we want to look nice. You want to cover up tattoos. You want to take out your piercings. You don't want to go in there with camo. And then you don't want to look too excited either. You want to look kind of bored. And that's,
these are great tips.
Yeah, and don't bring a constitution. Don't sit there and read it in front of. If you need a constitution, hide it in your pocket. Right. If you need to, go to it when you excuse yourself to go to the bathroom or something. Because we should know what our constitutional rights are and if they're being violated. We should know that the 9th Amendment protects all our rights and that the 10th Amendment protects us from overreaching federal powers. So if you need to, go to your Constitution, hide it somewhere.
It sounds like you could do a show called Tips, Tricks, Tools, and Strategies to Surviving Voir dire. Thanks, Bob. We'll be right back after these messages.
Disagree with anything you label racist. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place of the left's hypocrisy. Little pink houses for you and me. Welcome to the face.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
About 6 months ago, my wife bought Extendivite. She didn't tell me she was giving it to me. So after about 3 days, I said, maybe the weather's changed or something. I said, my legs feel really good. And she goes, well, I've been giving you this stuff, and it was the Extendivite. And you know that I'm about 75% better. I can actually climb stairs now, and I can get up out of chairs. I can even get down and, like have to work under a table or a computer table and work on a computer. I can actually get back up off the floor. You know what? It's an amazing product. I didn't think anything short of having surgery was going to help.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, health care has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the Matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and we're looking for superheroes out there, and we're hoping that there's some superheroes listening tonight. I've got John 8:31-32. It says, Then said Jesus to those Jews which believed on him, If ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Praise God for his word. We hold it like a lamp to our feet, and we want the truth, and we want to be free. And that's what we're talking about tonight. We don't want to be in a cage like a dog. And we appreciate those tips and tools to survive. Voir dire. Bob has recommended a good book. I think everybody should get that book. And Bob, you think there's any superheroes out there tonight?
Absolutely. Absolutely there are. Matter of fact, every time I hand a brochure to someone or talk to someone about jury nullification, the jury powers, I view them as a hero. And they're going to do something to affect change in our states. So every single one of us has this power. There's nobody that's without this power, unless you can't speak English, unless you are handicapped or hearing impaired, if unfortunately, if you're handicapped, you're not going to be able to serve. But the majority of us can serve. But you said, Caged Like a Dog. That reminds me of another great book. It's a short book called The Kennel, and that's by Dr. Kent Hovind. And wow, what an incredible book to give a perspective of what it's like to be in prison. And it's a fun read, actually. Mm-hmm. It's sad, but it's got a lot of good tips in there about how bad our system is.
He wrote that book from prison, behind bars, and he wrote it with the pen name Elijah Green because he didn't want to get in trouble for writing that book. And you can get that one on his website and support his ministry at 2peter3.com. And those Amen. Are the numbers. It's the number 2 and the number 3, peter3.com.
Well, back to surviving the jury selection process, you don't want to lie, but there's nothing wrong with crafting your words in a way that will get you selected. And there's one of the big problems. Folks like to sit there and brag about themselves. So if they get asked a question, they want to keep talking about themselves. Don't give them any extra information because that's exactly what they're doing. The attorneys have extra people at their tables jotting down notes and who they're going to pick and who they're not. So don't give any extra information. Just answer the questions, concise and to the point. Leave your opinion at home. Just get on that jury and save a life.
That's excellent advice. Yeah, have you seen that show, Bob? You really, really, really got to see that show. My mom's been begging me to watch it. I watched one episode. It's called Bull, and it's about voir dire or jury selection, and it's based on a true story because Oprah went to court and she hired Dr. Phil, and I think the whole show is based on Dr. Phil, and but in the TV show it's called Dr. Bull, I guess, and he's a psychiatrist, and he's hired by these well-to-do defendants, and he goes to the jury selection process, and he studies the jury, and he can tell every single day at the end of the day what the jury is going to vote in the verdict. Have you seen that show?
No, I heard about it a long time ago. I guess it came out probably 2 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, if you can even just watch the very first episode, that's the one I watched. They had all these TV screens around. Of course, they had all the, millions of dollars from these defendants who are wealthy, and they put up their social media pages, and they studied their body language, and it's a really good show. I think I might try and watch a few more episodes.
Well, I appreciate that. I will definitely make an effort to watch it because you can't get enough education about what's going on in this judiciary and how far awry they have gone. And we know they have. I mean, the freest country in the world has got the most prisoners in the history of the world. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So what I want to tell you is bring your conscience in there. Stand firm on how you vote. Matter of fact, if you can during deliberations, suggest having a secret ballot. That'll help stop you from being singled out. Of course, I would love to see 12 people be fully informed. 2 would be great because it'd be good for 2 people to stand side by side. But it's difficult for one person.
What do you mean
I've
secret
never been in that position.
Ballot? What does that mean? What does that mean, secret ballot?
Oh, like how you're going to vote, guilty or not guilty?
So is that an option in the deliberations?
It sure could be, yeah. Yeah, it's up to it's just the jurors in that room, and you can suggest a secret ballot. That way, that if there's just one saying not guilty, they're not going to come under a lot of pressure from the rest of them because they've got to go home and go to their son's football game, or they got to go back to work, or they want to go out to dinner. Unfortunately, we don't put too much. We don't really care about people's lives, and it's sad to say, but we're not a very caring people today. We don't have the grace and mercy. But if we can get people to see that life is valuable, and even one day in a cage is horrible. Now, me personally, I believe in restorative justice. I believe that's the biblical way to do something. But we don't have that in our society. We don't have restorative justice. We should have. That should be all done through the civil courts. But, when someone gets hurt by a criminal, the victim doesn't get restored.
Not at all.
Not at all. And there are bad guys out there, so we do need to put away bad guys. The majority of them are not bad guys. So what I want to tell you is, stand firm. There's also something I want to tell you about with Oregon and Louisiana. It takes 2 people to hang a jury.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're looking at changing that in Louisiana right now. I hope they do. But the rest of the states, it just takes 1 single juror to be that superhero. I want to give you an idea, when you should vote not guilty. These are some questions on our rec card that says guilty or not guilty. You can pull this up on FIJA's website, FIJA.org, and I'll read a couple of these to you. Did the government prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the accused broke the law? If not, not guilty.
Reasonable doubt? I don't think people understand the meaning of the word reasonable doubt anymore.
No, I don't think so either. A lot of people go into these courtrooms and they don't have an understanding of what their duty is that day, and that's what we're doing with under FIJA. A lot of us volunteers and are educating folks. This is a multi-step process. But if anything, if I can tell somebody, bring in your conscience. Don't hang your conscience at the door like the judge wants you to do. You bring it in there, and if it's on your heart, because you've got to live with this decision the rest of your life. If it's on your heart to set somebody free, you do that. And you know what's right and what's wrong and how something is misapplied. But let me read the last couple of these. Is the law that was broken constitutional? If not, not guilty. Is the law that was broken just and justly applied in the case at hand? If not, not guilty. Was anyone harmed? Was anyone's property harmed? If not, not guilty. There should be a victim for there to be a crime.
Amen.
Yes, and does the punishment fit the crime? If not, not guilty.
But that goes back to they don't know what the mandatory minimums are.
Well, we need to know that there's mandatory minimums, and we need to ask. And if they don't give us the answer we want, me personally, I'm going to vote not guilty.
Me too.
They're supposed to bring everything before me. And if they don't, if they're hiding something, if the judge has a sidebar with the attorneys and they're whispering or in the chambers, they just took the jury out of the equation. Right then and there, I'm going to vote not guilty.
Yep, sidebar is not good.
No, not at all. And one last thing, do other factors exist that would make strict enforcement of the law unjust in this case? If so, not guilty. Please look at the RAC card. That's one of our new brochures that's out. We also have one called Your Jury Rights, True or False. And there's a quiz on the website, our website, FIJA.org. You can take that quiz and see where you're at as a juror. See if you can get all the answers right. And if you can't, well, once they show you where you missed it, you'll become fully informed and you'll learn about what your rights as a juror is. So there's a lot of resources. It's an incredible website. The folks that have put it together are pretty incredible. They do this on minimal. As a matter of fact, our director sometimes doesn't even pay herself.
No, I know. It's a labor of love and loving our neighbor as ourselves. We do have a caller named Fred from Michigan. Fred, what do you want to know about jury nullification? Do you want to find out how to be a superhero? Oh, we lost Fred. I'm sorry, Fred. I hope you're still listening, and I hope you want to be a superhero.
No, did Fred say what his question was?
His question didn't come up, but I hope we have covered. If there's any other questions, they know where they can go to find out more.
Yes, absolutely. we will do our best to make fully informed jurors. I gave my email. I'll give it again. It's bobfija@gmail.com. And then the Fully Informed Jury Association's website is aji@fija.org. Or you can call at 1-800-TEL-JURY. That's TEL with one L, jury, JURY.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and you mentioned Roger Roots. I think a lot of this audience knows who he is. What is the office, do you know, that he's running for? Something.
I believe he's running for like clerk of the Supreme Court.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be awesome. He would be the right person for any position in the judiciary. He's going to be fair, and he's going to be constitutional. He will protect people's rights, and that's one of the things about Roger that is so great. He's a wonderful man. Speaking of the judiciary, I want to give one last book called Blind Injustice.
Oh, yeah.
And that's by Mark Godsey, and he was a federal prosecutor that turned a new leaf. He was got out of the business of prosecution, went to be a professor, was forced into take over Ohio Innocence Project at the university, and finally realized that there were a lot of innocent people being forced into prison, and there was a lot of unjust prosecutions and a lot of crimes going on within the prosecution's office. And I would like to tell you about one of those. There was something that Chicago had back in the late 90s. It was called the 2-ton contest. The Chicago prosecutors would put in money into a pot, and they would have a contest. The first prosecutor to convict 2 tons of flesh would win the pot. Mark Godsey exposes these kind of crimes within our judiciary and our executive branches. And he does it in a way that's, he's not a hateful man. He just exposes the problem, and it's an eye-opener. So I would suggest that you read this book, Blind Injustice. If you're on Facebook, look up Blind Injustice and get daily. He'll put out something daily about what's going on out there, and how that in the past couple of years we've had 300 people exonerated from crimes in the United States, and that's just a drop in the bucket. So the Innocence Projects are working real hard at freeing people.
There's no end to that list of innocent prisoners behind bars, and if anybody has any questions about how important this topic is, they can write to Schaefer Cox. He's been in there 7 years on a 26-year sentence. We've got Yuri Von Kahl and Scott Fall, where they didn't kill anybody, and they're in there for 35 years. We have we have Russell Landers. He didn't hurt anybody. He's been in there for 35 years. I mean, the list goes on and on. These guys are in there with like 3 decades where there's no victim. And if you were on the jury in their cases, you could have voted not guilty and changed the path of all their lives and their grandchildren. And believe me, I know I mean, not personally, but I know from talking to the families, it is utter destruction that it rains down on these families of these innocent prisoners behind bars. Blind Injustice is also listed on our yearofjubilee.com website, and that's with 1 E spelt like the King James Bible. And if you can't remember that, our website is ihatethefbi.com. It'll take you to the same homepage with a list of all these books.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot more out there as far as good reads, but I think these the books that you have on your website I've seen and gotten plenty of those books from the website, and so it's a good list.
Yeah, isn't Larkin isn't he in town this week?
You know what? I don't know. Actually,
I think he's in town this week, and he's going to be talking about justice as well. He's a good speaker locally. So we also had License to Lie on there. That's
oh yes.
Yeah, That's a good book, and she's going to be in Dallas for John B. Wells' big event, I think this fall. That's Sidney Powell. The Terror Factory is another great book, exposing the corruption of the Department of Justice and how corrupt federal courts are a conviction factory rather than a pillar for justice. So the books, if you want to learn about... we even have your link here, too, for FIJA. If you want to go there, you can find it. And we want to keep praying and praying for justice in this country. I was just sitting down to breakfast this morning counting my blessings. I have everything I want. I have a really nice frying pan. I hope you got the same one, Bob.
Not yet. We're getting there.
Not yet. Well, keep looking for it. It's a Curtis Stone, and it makes your life a whole lot better when you're making your omelets. But anyways, I was looking out on the grass in the backyard, and I was counting my blessings this morning. And the only thing that I want in this world, well, there's two things. I want justice, and I want more salvations for those people out there that are listening tonight. I hope that you get a burning desire in your heart for justice and for Jesus, and Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, you know, and if you read his scriptures and you follow his Bible, you'll know that what's going on in this country is downright satanic, and it's really got to flip around. We have, I've got Daniel here, 3:16 to 18, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to King, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fire furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. So, I mean, God will deliver us, and even if he doesn't, we're still going to serve him, and we're going to serve him by educating people, and that's the best place to start, is by reading these books, because you're not going to learn this information on TV. This week, I think it was Wednesday, we talked to Lorianne, and she was telling us how to cope with her strategies of getting her loved one, Thomas Lacavera Stewart, out of prison and out of the grips of these satanic forces. And it was a nightmare for her, what she had to learn, codes and policies changing every day. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have to learn all this nonsense. And it puts, these prisoners, they get legal abuse syndrome trying to get out of these cages that are worse than... We had one prisoner call us last week, and he's in a cage outside, an actual cage like a dog goes in. I think they actually had dogs kept in this cage, and he was in a cage with no shade like a dog last week. And I don't want people to go in there. It's a nightmare, and you can be a superhero. You know, you can take this evilness, flip it around, flip the script, get excited, listen to what Bob's telling us. You can be a superhero. Can you imagine how you would feel, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, knowing that you saved another person's life? Not just their life, but you saved their whole family and generations to come life. I can't even imagine you or Yvonne Collins, Scott Falder. They haven't seen their grandchildren. It's a nightmare. So that's what I've got to say about that. Anything else you want to add, Bob?
Yeah, I think one final thing I want to say. The only power the judge has over the jury is their ignorance.
There's a lot of that. We talked about fluoride last night, lowering the IQ 7 points in Americans. We need to educate these jury people and get the fluoride out.
I believe they have an agenda, and right now it seems like they've got the upper hand. But it's time that we start exercising those checks on our government, and we start taking back our country. So.
And we can do it.
Amen.
All right, everyone. I'm going to read Psalm 23. I think this is appropriate for this show tonight. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
Amen.
Psalm 139:14, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Revelation 21:8, but the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Psalm 12:6-7, the words of the Lord are pure words, as silver tried in a furnace of earth, purified 7 times. Thou shalt keep them, O Lord. Thou shalt preserve them from this generation forever. Proverbs 14:12, there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Psalm 119:105, the word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I want to thank you all for listening tonight. I really pray hard that this gets you excited to become a superhero, and I pray that you check out FIJA.org. I think this is really exciting. It's the last line of peaceful defense between a tyrannical government and the defendant. It's jury nullification. Please, I'm begging you to find out what it's all about before it's too late.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome, Bob. I really appreciate you tonight, and hope you guys all have a really great weekend. Tell all your friends and neighbors about jury nullification, and get some brochures to pass out. Be a superhero. Good night.
Good night.
Interested in photo ops.